Some time ago, I made a review of the Keith Titanium Pour-Over Coffee Kit, and my only complaint for this was, other than the fact that it's a little bit expensive, was just how small a cup of coffee it actually makes. Well, Keith has solved that issue because they've come up with the Titanium FlavorGuard Coffee Filter. If you're interested in hearing more about this device, keep watching. And just before we get started, I want to thank Keith Titanium for sending out this coffee filter so that I can share it with you. Now, just a couple of things. First off, this has just been released to the market. I've had this test model, this prototype, for quite some time. It's going to be followed up with two types of holders that you can use it. One for use at home and one for use on the traveling or on the go or in the woods, like I would likely be using it. I have the prototype for the home model that I can share with you, but Keith is still working on the smaller holder for it that you can take with you in the woods. Having said that though, it still offers a lot of versatility even without either of those holders. So what I thought I would do is quickly go over just a few specifications for the device, because it is really quite amazing how they made this and all the technology that went into it. But more importantly, let's make some coffee. All right, so just what's so special about the Keith Titanium FlavorGuard Pour-Over Coffee Filter? Well, it's because they're using the same technology in this filter as they did in the tiny filter that went with the tiny coffee kit. It's all about the holes that have been drilled into it. Now, drilled is not a good word. They use lasers to do this. There are more than 20,000 very tiny holes in the bottom portion of this comb. But what's unique about them is that the holes are larger on the outside than they are on the inside. So in fact, each of the holes is slightly conical. You can barely see it, because you can barely see it unless you hold it up to the light to look through it. But you can feel the difference. The holes feel a little rougher on the outside than they do on the inside. Quite smooth. In fact, you wouldn't even know there are holes there on the inside. The whole point of that is that it allows the fluid, the coffee, to flow out through those holes unrestricted, while at the same time keeping all the grounds behind inside of the filter. So you really get kind of the best of both worlds. What you get is all the clarity of a paper filtered type of pour over, but it allows the oils and other rich ingredients of the coffee to flow through, kind of like what you would get with a French press, just a little bit cleaner, and no grounds, no fines getting into your cup of coffee. So, and it works extremely well. Now, the other thing they did is, obviously it's bigger, so it's going to make you a much larger cup of coffee. But the filter all by itself, and it can be purchased without either of the two ways of mounting it for pouring it or using it, because it can be used with other devices. Anything that accepts a conical paper filter can also accept and use this. And of course, then again, you don't have to use paper filters ever again. Such devices like the Chemex, and if those of you in the know a Chemex is a well-known way of making coffee. It's a glass carafe that's kind of hourglass shape, and you put the filter in the top and your coffee in that, and of course you pour over and it goes into the glass carafe below. Or the Hario V60 filter, and there's a number of models, but what's unique about both of those is that they use a conical piece of or paper filter and not one like any of the other coffee makers like Melita use. So it's agreed among most coffee experts that that conical shape provides a better flow of the water through the coffee, so you get a fuller body in your cup. Well, that's exactly what Keith set out to do with this, and I think it works extremely well. Now, I'm just going to put the weights and the size and everything in the video description because, well, you can see it's small, it's light, and it is exactly the same size as one of those V60 paper filters that you might use in a Hario V60 coffee pour over. More importantly, let's make some coffee. Okay, so this is the bracket that Keith Titanium sent to me for use at home. It's meant to be something quite modern looking. It's completely made of titanium. Very simple device. They're still working out the final model of this, but I understand it's going to be very close for this. Now, obviously, this is not something you're going to take to the woods with you, but it will sit on your counter just nicely, of course. And all you have to do from here is place a cup in the center underneath it. And can you imagine what coffee I might be using today? I think that's a good indication. Still drinking and enjoying my Rampage coffee. Oh, by the way, there is the coffee ground in the filter. Now, I have 18 grams of coffee in here and about 240 grams of water just off the boil that I'll be using to run through this. It's the measurements up to your personal taste, of course. The standard starting point is 60 grams per liter of water. So if you divide that down, it would be 15 grams per cup of water. So, work at the, that's a place to start. And then how fine do you grind it? Once again, that's kind of up to experience. I've got this ground fairly fine. And what I find with this is that it takes a while for it to run through the filter, but it produces a really nice, rich cup of coffee, richer than I can get with any paper filter for sure, but without any grounds left behind. So I don't have a pour-over kettle here with me, but I do have my standard kitchen kettle, and I'll just start pouring, and I'm going to do a little bit of a pre-soak, just enough so that the coffee can, we'll say, swell a minute, just to soak up a little bit of the coffee. It slows down the water running through and allows all the coffee to get a little bit of water mixed in. I can actually see the coffee blooming on top. That's a pleasant sight to see. It means nice fresh coffee. And you can see it's just starting to drip through. So now I'll start going around in circles, ensuring that all the coffee is getting wet as we go. And there's no rush. It's not like you just fill it up and walk away. It's nice to continue to pour this over. You get a bit more control though, I guess, if you're using one of the gooseneck kettles. Allows you to go around in a very steady and well-aimed stream. You can see it's working its way through. And that's all 240 grams of water, just under 1 full cup. Now it'll take a minute or so for it to pour through. Now what I want to point out as it's doing so, and I'll make sure the camera picks this up when I'm in editing, is that it's only the portion of the filter that extends below the titanium stand that actually has those minuscule holes. How small did I say they were? I'll make sure I get this. 140 micrometers. That's how small those holes are. That's the inside, or is it? Yes, the inside of the holes. 140 micrometers, being a little larger on the outside of the filter. And you can see that the coffee is going through steadily. It runs kind of down through to the center of the cone, but a little bit is running around the outside, right at the bottom here as well. So you're getting quite a bit. Now, a little trick I've learned is if I give this a little shake, probably a non-standard way of doing it, it just ensures that all the coffee stays in the water for a longer period of time. Again, experience will let you know whether or not this is the way you want to do it in the future. All right, it's going to take another minute or so to finish pouring through, and once it does, we'll do the taste test and wrap this video up. All right, it only took about another 30 seconds for the coffee to finish running through the coffee filter, and then I gave the coffee about another 30 seconds, maybe a minute, just to come down to a mouth temperature, a palatable temperature where I can enjoy it. So let's give it a test. I can't get over this. I've been using this filter for the last 4 months here at home because it's the only device I have is that mount that I have for here, using it in the kitchen. I'm really looking forward to being able to take this out in the woods when Keith develops the holder for that. And I'll bring that back to you, of course, right away. But every time I do use it, usually for a single cup of coffee, like I'm doing right now, early afternoon, I'm so impressed with the quality of the coffee that it produces. It has the clarity of a pour-over that would use a paper filter, but still has the body of something that was run through a French press. Just no grounds, no fines in the coffee at all. Kind of like the best of both worlds, to say the least. Yeah, that's the best, exactly, the best of both worlds. Of course, it helps to have good coffee like the Rampage that I made it with. It just, yeah, you have to have good coffee if you're looking to make a good cup of coffee. You have to have good, fresh, roasted craft coffee. That's my opinion anyway. Now, this is not an inexpensive device. It's running, my understand, on Amazon about $90 American. It's going to be a little bit more than that, of course, in Canada. And that may seem expensive. So this is really intended for people who want the very best filter that they can use for pour-over coffees. If you love making pour-over coffees, and well, you really owe it to yourself to take a look at this device. Justifying the price, well, one way of looking at it is I'll never have to use a paper filter again, and I likely never will use a paper filter again, knowing how good a cup of coffee this makes. Now, the other thing about this is how easy it is to clean. For me, when I'm finished here and I just let it cool down, I'll be able to dump it into the compost that I have here. And whatever's left behind, I just wash out with a little soap and water and let it dry, and I'm good to go. And you have to know that titanium is non-reactive, so it doesn't retain any flavors, either from the coffee that's been run through it or from the soap and water. It's going to come out perfectly clean, and it will have no tainted flavors the next time you go to make coffee. So another thing, and you're not going to destroy that thing. You'd have to actively run it over with a car, I think, titanium being so strong. It really is a great way of making coffee. Now, as I said, the only thing that I'm missing is some way of using this out in the woods. So I'm going to be looking for a pour over device until Keith comes over. That will hold a conical shaped paper filter normally. And then when I have the one from Keith, that's when I'll come back and share that with you. Okay, if you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments section below. If you are interested, I'll put a link to the coffee filter, the FlavorGuard pour over coffee filter, both at Keith Titanium as well as the Amazon link. But until next time, get out and explore and take that path less traveled, because it will make all the difference. Bye for now.